have completed the demolition and removal phase of the project. As you can see, all of the old interior finishes have been pulled out and removed. Through that process, we've had some discovery, as is typical. It's an old home, so we found some framing components that were structurally compromised, which we'll be able to fix. It was a good thing that we found those. We were able to remove all of the old knob and tube wiring, which is a hazard, and the old steel plumbing, which will be new. We'll be able to thermally improve all the exterior walls and get them all insulated, which they weren't before. So it'll be a much better performing house because of it. But the real starting point of this project for us is with the foundation downstairs. So we can go take a look at that. So one of the interesting things about these old homes is this was built in 1918, and in that era we didn't have plywood or engineered wood products. So all of the subflooring is boards. We call this shiplap board material. And you can see the sheathing on the house on the outside walls was also board shiplap. That's what they had to work with back then, and it's held up great for over 100 years. So one of the framing discoveries we came across here was in the ceiling structure and the roof load structure upstairs. You can see here how the ceiling rafters didn't quite make it to the outside wall, so they just tacked on some blocks to kind of carry that load over. Unfortunately, the whole roof load and everything is sitting on top of that, so that's a real compromise structurally, so we'll be able to fix that now, but we would not have known, had we not stripped the house out, that that condition existed. At the era this house was framed, they framed everything out of 2x4s, which would be completely undersized for today's structural standards. But one interesting aspect about that is that they were working with a higher caliber material. So this is all old growth timber compared to second growth and third growth timber that we have nowadays. As an example of that, this is the old growth timber. You can see how many grains per inch there are and how dense that is and how strong it is compared to today's standard lumber, which is second and third growth. You can obviously see this is much stronger. So they're getting a higher strength rating out of this old growth timber than the new growth. One cool thing about these old homes is these are the original windows from when the house was built back in 1918. So they're single pane glass and they're single hung, meaning this sash can move up and down on these cast iron weights, which counterbalances the weight of the window. So there's pockets in between the windows, and you'll see those weights are on cords, and it goes through a pulley system, and that attaches to the sash, which allows it to go up and down freely. Pretty cool. So as we noted before, one of the primary tenets of this project is to lower the floor level in the basement to make this a much more pleasing and habitable space downstairs. So what the guys are working on here is what we call a zipper wall system. They're coming in, they're putting in a new section of foundation every 4 feet, and that goes down to our new floor level down there. We're going to pour these today with a 5,000 PSI concrete mix, high early mix, so that gets up to strength quickly. And then we'll be able to put the load of the house on those sections. And then we'll come in and knock out this floor and dig this all down to that level. And they'll come in and put in the pieces of foundation in between the sections that have already been poured. So one of the differences in our foundation work nowadays to back to 1918 is we put a lot of reinforcing steel in our foundation walls, which the old wall has none. They didn't do reinforcing steel back in that era, but now we do. So we're epoxying in rebar and attaching it to the old foundation, basically tying those two walls together. So if anything ever does crack structurally, it all stays together and retains its strength rating. Okay, so we have completed our excavation underneath the house. The basement has now been dug down a total of 3 feet, allowing for the higher ceilings in the larger basement. We have the whole house shored here on this temporary shoring and on the foundation walls on the other side that we saw previously. So now the fellows have formed up all the footings and tied the steel, and we're getting ready to pour concrete for our footings, and then we're going back the other direction to resupport this house on a new foundation. So in our footings, we'll have rebar steel that's tied in a grid, and you can see the stem bars coming up for the vertical walls, the foundation walls that will be tied into the footing. The footings are quite large because they're retaining all of this dirt that you see behind us here in the cut, and yeah, that'll reinforce all of the concrete. On the south and the west sides of the foundation, we are working with the existing foundations in place and extending them down to the new floor level in the basement, which is about 3 feet below where it was before, and extending those foundations down and retaining the existing soils behind them. One of the really fun and cool things about this build is that we have to support this house and hold it up in the air while we put a new foundation in underneath it. So you can see all of this temporary shoring that's in place to hold all of that load and that weight up there. And on two sides we're on our new foundation extensions to hold it in place. One of our other challenges is the time of year that we're doing this is very wet right now. So the soils that we have in this project site are very clay based, so that holds water. So we're trying to keep all the water from accumulating down here in our little bowl. So a lot of time has been spent on tenting and trying to keep that rainwater from coming down into it.